recognizing the very tenuous situation that we are in right now and the need truly for speed on all of this, we get that, but we've got to be honest. If we're going to be facing some gaps that are going to allow for a level of exposure, we're talking about spending a lot of money on a lot of different initiatives that are quite significant. But we've got to have the ability to go from A to B before we go from A to Z here. Every time I've asked, I get the, well, we're on schedule. Well, you can't be on schedule if you haven't even had a notice of award yet. So can you give me what you believe is a more realistic deployment schedule? And hopefully that the department has a strategy for scaling the microreactor deployment beyond Eielson. I think this is going to be absolutely key for us to meet our energy needs, whether it's in Eielson or ADAC or wherever in the world.
Welcome back to Right View Nation, the unapologetic voice of the American patriot. I'm your host, and today we're going in hot, folks. Buckle up, because what I just heard in that Senate discussion is a prime example of what happens when bureaucracy, globalist distractions, and woke budget juggling collide with our national security and military readiness. We've got Senator Lisa Murkowski, yes, a voice from the cold frontier of Alaska, doing something rare in Washington these days, demanding real accountability from the Department of Defense. And she's absolutely right to do it. Let me break this down.
Senator Murkowski.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Gentlemen, thank you for being here today. Thank you for your leadership and just deep appreciation for the extraordinary professionalism that we see out of our Air Force, all of our military, as we saw things executed literally before our eyes over the weekend. So just thank you for that. I want to ask a little bit this morning about the E7 and the termination, the 26 budget request seeking to terminate this acquisition program that's slated to replace the E3 Sentries. You've heard me before talk about the need, certainly up in the north. We just haven't heard, in my view, sufficient justification for the cancellation of such a critical program. We hear all the time how the E3 fleet is barely operational. It's kind of limping along. I do understand. I've had the conversation about the intent to shift towards space-based AMTI, supposedly by 2027, and then using the Navy's E2 as a stopgap. I'm told that the E2 can't match the E7's capabilities. And then when it comes to the AMTI, we heard from General Gutlein. He estimated the capabilities might only, his words were, start coming online in the early 2030s. General Alvin, you have underscored previously to me the E7's superior role over the E3. And then General Saltzman, in prior comments, you've agreed that space offers advantages but isn't optimized for the full military spectrum and have advocated for basically a mixed capabilities approach. So, General Alvin, can you detail for us any concerns that you may have on the gaps terminating the E7 program presents?
Well, Senator, I think you appropriately characterized the challenges that we're having with the E3, and I will acknowledge that the E7 is a far superior aircraft in its capabilities to the E3. I think as we look at multiple phenomenologies, as we discussed multiple domains, that fell into the realm of difficult decisions that were made by the Department of Defense, and we'll have to look forward in the future on how we would stitch together those and ensure that we would mitigate any gap based on the
Do you
resource
worry,
decisions.
though, about the fact, I mean, stitching together to fill the gaps, if it works, but we don't want to be operating off of a wing and a prayer here. Are you comfortable with the fact that we'll be able to stitch these gaps?
Well, Senator, we'll certainly work as hard as we can on that. We will look to that and look at the ability and how fast the phenomenologies from the other domains will come on, and we will deal with these hard decisions that were had to be made by the Department of Defense.
General Salzman, can you speak to that just in terms of when you might expect the delivery of the space-based AMTI?
Well, we're already evaluating data to include our own kind of government-based evaluations of the data, as well as what some of the vendors are telling us the data looks like. It's promising. And then you have to put together the right contract vehicle to launch the satellites in a time and place. So I think by the end of the decade, you will start to see capability delivering data. I won't say that that's accomplishing the mission by 29. I think General Gutline's assessment that this is an early 30s delivery of a real capability is not too far off.
Yeah. Just recognizing the very tenuous situation that we are in right now and the need truly for speed on all of this. We get that, but we've got to be honest. If we're going to be facing some gaps that are going to allow for a level of exposure, we're talking about spending a lot of money on a lot of different initiatives that are quite significant. But we've got to have the ability to go from A to B before we go from A to Z here. I want to ask you a question, Mr. Secretary, and this relates to the microreactor pilot. Finally, after way too many years here, we've got another notice of intent to award for the Eielson microreactor project. It's good news. It's long overdue. We all get that. I know that the initial goal was to have this demonstration reactor operational by 2027. Every time I've asked, I get well, we're on schedule. Well, you can't be on schedule if you haven't even had a notice of award yet. So can you give me what you believe is a more realistic deployment schedule? And hopefully that the department has a strategy for scaling the microreactor deployment beyond Eielson. I think this is going to be absolutely key for us to meet our energy needs, whether it's in Eielson or ADAC or wherever in the world you may be.
I agree, Senator. This is going to be a critical capability in many locations that we have to operate in, that local power just is not available or not reliable or expensive, or we impart challenges on the local communities when we do come in. So I agree 100% with you. I'm a little bit at a loss because I was under the impression that we had actually had announced that we made a selection and that we had awarded a contract. I will get back to you on the specific details of that contract, but we are still looking at 27. The contractor is just spinning up. We're still getting some of the specific details, but we are still looking at a 27. But I will get back to you, Senator, if there's anything.
Can you get back to me with more accuracy to that? Because we're told that it has issued. The Air Force has issued another notice of intent to award for the project, and again, that it's still 2027.
Yeah, I'll get you specifics of where the contract state is, but I believe it's still 2027.
Okay, I'm thinking this is still wishing a prayer, but I want you to stick with that 2027 date.
I'm probably not going to bet a week's salary on that, Senator. But we have a lot of the contractor. We have a lot of confidence in the approach, and we are. The important thing is we're off to the races now, and we're moving out.
I look forward to a follow-on. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
The Department of Defense wants to terminate the E-7 acquisition program, a critical upgrade that would replace our aging E-3 Sentry aircraft. You know, the ones barely limping through the skies as it is. These aren't luxury jets or pet projects. These are the eyes and ears of the American military, vital to tracking threats in real time. Instead, the geniuses in the Pentagon want to gamble on unproven, not yet operational space-based surveillance systems, supposedly ready in maybe 2027 or maybe the 2030s. You heard that right. The plan is to mothball functioning aircraft and pray satellites we haven't launched yet will pick up the slack. Folks, you don't need a military background to know that this is madness. It's the equivalent of throwing away your rifle because the factory promised to send you a laser gun in 5 years, maybe. Now, General Alvin, to his credit, didn't sugarcoat it. He admitted the E-7 is far superior to the aging E-3. He even acknowledged there would be gaps and that they're relying on multiple phenomenologies to cover it. Excuse me? Phenomenologies? This isn't a philosophy class at Berkeley. This is national defense. The American people deserve plain answers and solid action, not academic jargon and "we'll see what happens" nonsense. And let me say this loud and clear. We don't protect freedom with theoretical capabilities. We protect it with real steel in the air, with boots on the ground, and with leadership that doesn't outsource our future to vendors and untested technologies. Senator Murkowski said something that hit hard. We don't want to be operating off of a wing and a prayer. Exactly. That's the kind of common sense we need more of in that chamber. But here's the problem. Common sense is no longer common in Washington. The bureaucrats are so obsessed with chasing futuristic fantasies, cutting deals with private contractors, and virtue signaling to international summits, that they're willing to leave our warfighters blind in the sky. Let's be honest, folks. This is what happens when you let globalist planners and pencil pushers dictate military doctrine. They've got more faith in a SpaceX launch than in a tried-and-true aircraft keeping America safe today. Then we pivoted to the microreactor pilot project. Now, I'm all for innovation. Hell yes, we need energy independence on every front. But once again, we're staring at another broken timeline and bureaucratic spin. Murkowski brought the heat, calling out how the project is supposedly on track for 2027, even though they just issued the notice of intent to award the contract. That's like saying your house will be done next week, but the foundation hasn't even been poured. And what was the military's answer? A sheepish "we'll get back to you." Are you kidding me? This is a major national energy initiative, not a bake sale. We're talking about deploying power solutions to remote bases, like those in Alaska and across the globe. Lives will depend on that energy when everything else fails. Yet again, we're relying on wishful thinking and vague promises. This whole hearing laid bare something every American needs to wake up to. Our national defense is being sacrificed at the altar of delay, distraction, and Defense Department dysfunction. The Biden-era Pentagon is more focused on pronoun training and climate workshops than it is on securing the airspace or empowering the front lines. And while our enemies are gearing up with hypersonic missiles, the DoD is putting its faith in satellites that don't exist yet and reactors that are stuck in bureaucratic hell. We need patriots in power. We need real leadership. And we need a military built on readiness, not rhetoric. Here at Right View Nation, we're not afraid to speak the truth. And the truth is this: America is strongest when it prioritizes readiness, reliability, and realism, not fantasy tech and false promises. So to Senator Murkowski, we salute you. Keep pressing. Don't let the Pentagon play hide and seek with our future. And to our viewers, stay vigilant, stay vocal, and stay unapologetically American. This is Right View Nation, where truth has no safe space. Like, subscribe, share, because if we don't speak up, the swamp wins.